Hi, I wanted to get you some feedback by giving you a bit of a demo on, I think, your concern of how difficult it was to get rid of the background or create this photograph of the green cup against a white background. Now, I'm going to show you a way that I think will also benefit you in the long run in terms of understanding selection and masking and the ability to do a host of other things that I think you might benefit from. So anyway, I have your image open. I'm going to duplicate the background layer here. So I'm working off the background. I always have my original locked. I'm going to go up here to what's called Quick Selection Tool. And instead of going in and selecting, I'm going to use a smart select subject that is a kind of intelligent selection that Photoshop's going to give me to get me started. Now, it does an okay job, but it's not perfect. So I'm going to go up here to what's called Select and Mask, and that's going to open up this new dialog window. If you'll notice over here, I have what's an overlay right here, and the overlay actually is on a red color. You can change that if you want, but if I increase the density, you can see that. Now I've gone a little bit more opaque in order to see that edge here. And what you'll notice over here is a few tools. You have that quick select tool. Within this dialog box, you have what's called a refine edge tool, and then you have a brush tool, and you have a host of other things that you can get into if you want, but it's not super critical. Actually, I can try to use this one and see how well it does, but it should be similar to what we had before. Yeah, so it's not giving us anything better necessarily. So what I'm going to do, I'm in object aware mode. There is a color aware mode, but I'm not going to do that now either because I think it's going to get confused with this cup below. So I'm in object aware mode, and I'm going to first make sure I remember my settings. So if I come back in here to refine it again, after I get back to the regular Photoshop dialog, then I can come back and be where I left off in terms of my settings. Now here, this edge detection, I'm gonna select what's called Smart Radius, and I'm gonna zoom in here so you can see maybe some of what might happen when I increase this. You see how it's trying to more intelligently grab that edge? Now I'm going to leave it at 2 pixels. I believe in just slight increments. I'm going to come back up here to this paintbrush, and I'm going to start refining this tool based on that selection alone. So when I'm in, see how there's a plus icon in the middle? You're going to be switching between what's called plus and minus, so where you're getting rid, or you're actually selecting in the positive what it is you want selected, right? And you can see that the red is disappearing. You can also select the Alt key very quickly, and it'll switch between those. So watch, if I select here, it'll add and subtract, right? So when it's a little bit confusing, but I'm basically adding to the selection or subtracting from the selection. It'll make sense in a minute here too, but I'm going to go around here. I'm going to subtract, I'm going to add to the selection, so I reveal the edge of that. Now one thing to keep in mind is I'm also right here. My brush is, I don't know why that's stuck there. There we go. My brush is at about 30% hardness. Watch, if I go up here, that icon right here gets harder around the edge. That just means the edge of whatever I'm painting is either hard or sharp versus feathered or blurry, right? And I'm going to go on the blurrier side, so that edge that I'm selecting is softer, which will help blend it with the background instead of it being kind of a hard break. Now I can see that this is the cup edge, but I'm wondering, I'm going to try to get rid of this because I think maybe that didn't want to be there. And I'm gonna, in the positive, and notice I'm switching between positive and negative. I'm hitting that Alt key on my keyboard, Alt Option. I'm on a Mac too, by the way, so that might be different in terms of a PC. You'll have to test that out and see which is giving you that switch. But you can see using your key command is going to be a lot faster than going up here, coming back, going up here, coming out and back. Okay, so I'm going to hit Alt here and paint around this cup. And that's giving me a bit of a better selection. I'm going to select, make sure I'm in the positive here and clean up this edge so that's selected. Make sure everything I want is selected. And I'm holding, by the way, the space bar changes my cursor into a hand so I can grab. It's same here, but again, I don't want to go back and forth. So if I hit the space bar and drag, that'll give me that ability more easily. Okay, so I'll bring some of this back in. Make sure I'm getting everything that I want out of that. I'm gonna correct that a little bit. And it looks pretty good now, right? Like a nice selection. So if I went like this, you can see that selection's getting better and better. So back out, I'm hitting Command minus. You can also do Command 0, which will bring it to full screen. Now notice if I went like this, you can start to see how some of that got missed down here. So I'm gonna make sure I come back in and hit Alt key and really come in. I'll come back in and clean up. I'll show you in a second. And clean up just like that. And get rid of some of that. Cool. Okay, Command 0. I'm back here. I have a pretty decent selection now. I'm going to hit Smart Radius, give myself a couple radius points, and you can see that's not actually doing what I'd like it to. So I'm going to back off and see what 0, that's too much. So I'm going to get rid of Smart Radius. It's not going to work for me on this. I'm going to come back up here too and just do a little bit of cleaning because it looks a little bit wonky. That didn't work. I'll back out of that. Command Z is to back out. Just get a little bit of this back under control here. So I'm actually going to go beyond that and then come back in and just try to straighten some of this out. It doesn't have to be super perfect. I'll show you how we're going to correct some of that in a little bit, but this will get us a little bit better. Some of this overreach. Not bad. Yeah, I think that maybe pull that out too. Command 0, and I'm going to smooth out the edge here. So if you look at that edge right there, and I'm going to zoom in a little so you can see, if I did an extreme, just kind of softens that edge. We don't need much. I'm going to do like 5. Watch if I extreme feather. That's basically blending that edge. So I'm also going to do very little. A little goes a long way. Contrast is what creates a kind of hard separation between the foreground and background. I like to bring back just a little bit of that. And then one of the things I do like to do, even though it's counterintuitive, is I like to slightly come into my selection, right? And you'll see that that ultimately will reduce will end up looking like a halo around your selection if you're not careful. So I'm going to bring that in just slightly. Now this sometimes is collapsed, but you're going to want your output settings to be open, and don't worry about decontaminate colors, but go to here where it says output 2 and make sure you do new layer with layer mask. when I open that, you'll see that we're back at our image and it's created a mask here. Okay, this is a mask that is basically showing this area through to up here. All right, now watch what happens if I select and add. So I'm right clicking here on the mask and I say add mask to selection. It selects it again. See that? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to one of my adjustment layers, in this case brightness, and I'm going to brighten. But notice, see, it's brightening the interior. I'm going to get out of there. I'm going to back out, Command Z. You can also go to your history pane and back out of edits. Okay, so I have this selected now. What I want to do actually is invert that selection. So if I go to select and I inverse it, it's going to select everything but the cup. Okay, so now that you have that inverse, you're going to want to decide what you want to do to fill that out in white. There's a host of ways you can do this. You can actually literally fill that background, but because we have a mask here and I want to show you how this kind of stuff works, if I've selected this mask and I go to an adjustment layer, in this case brightness contrast, I can increase the brightness. See how it's only affecting that area that's selected, and increase the contrast. And then we come very close to having that selected and filled. What you can do now is you can go in and add mask to selection again and zoom in, Command plus. And in this case, I'm going to go to my brush tool and see how I have the white brush tool. I'm just going to go onto the image itself and start painting. Here, let me see if it'll let me do it. That's right, I didn't want to do it on the image itself, sorry. I want to go to this mask right here, and actually I did. I painted that white, right? And that came through because then I revealed that in the mask as well. And so what I basically did was I painted, here, let me show you. I'm gonna make this bigger. My panel options, I'm going to make that, oh, it is pretty large, okay. So here, I'll zoom in. This area right here is white now because I painted a white blotch there, and then I brought that through in the mask by painting some white onto this mask, which revealed it up to that top layer. I know that's a little bit confusing, but if I go back here and I paint white and then select the mask and open that up, it does it there too. And you'll see some of the edges here need that as well. So if I was going to paint in white over here, I can reveal some of that through the mask. Now if I deselect, which is Command D, you can see now that cup is against the black or against a white background. All right, I hope that helps some. You can change that background in other ways, in different colors. There's a whole host of things you can do, but this is a kind of quick-ish way of learning about masking and selection that I think will, again, benefit you in the long run. Okay, let me know if you've got any questions.